Welcome to Startup Colorado Lean Coffee. Today, my co-host is Spencer Ingram, who's going to share his screen and talk to us about funding Canvas. And welcome, Spencer.
Thank you, Vanessa. Honored that you reached out to have me kick off this new year of lean coffees, oriented around funding questions. And I think these go best when we just answer your questions. So I'll do my best not to talk your ear off this morning. But yes, I'm Spencer. I'm from Energize Colorado. I'll go ahead and put our link here in the chat. If you want to check that out, we are a small business lender in Colorado. We have a focus on rural Colorado this year and in past years to bring more capital to your businesses. I see in the room some businesses that we have helped fund, and they are well on their way to growing out here in rural Colorado. So I'm not here to talk about Energize Colorado specifically today. I'm here to give you a tool to help answer some questions about business funding for yourself or for the communities that you serve. So I'll go ahead and share my screen. Let's take a look. I've got a few slides just to help us work through it today. Okay, so I get a lot of questions about funding, anything and everything. But the thing that I always return to is, helping you answer what's good for my business, right? I'm not here to sell you a particular financial product. I want you to succeed in the best way that's good for you. So today you're going to learn a simple exercise for business funding so you can make those winning moves and avoid the traps that come with reaching for outside capital sometimes. So you may be familiar with the business model canvas. This canvas simplifies the business plan exercise into one page. It helps you ask better questions and then invite outside perspective. So it's sort of a clarifying exercise. It's not the answer to the best business model that you could come up with. It's an exercise in helping you explore the right questions. Well, at Energize Colorado, we said, what if we had this for business funding? Wouldn't that make lives a little bit easier? And we could have a shared language around how we might answer these funding mysteries. So we did that. We created the business funding canvas, and we're helping to answer that question: what's good for my business? So there's a goal, there are gaps, and there are gateways, the things that you might help to bridge those gaps or get what you need to get you to your next big goal. So I'm going to jump into this, working through the canvas here in a brief overview. But I want to start with a good story about a company that we spoke to recently, and we used this canvas. And in a 15-minute call, we brought some insight to the table. And that's a company out of Summit County. They're called SkyGoat. They make these wonderful waffle fabric base layer hoodies and other base layer products, and they're super comfortable. A brand I'm really starting to fall in love with, right? So we sat down and did the canvas because they came to me with the myriad of questions around business funding. And we started with a goal. And without oversharing their particular goals, they had a particular earnings target that would help them meet their next milestone in their business. So I'm going to simplify this here for everybody, but the goal was an earnings target overall. So we had to ask, what must be true? They had to sell a certain number of units to meet that goal. Not profound by any measure here. And so there were gaps to selling those number of units to meet their earnings targets. And that was that marketing spend at this early stage in their company to acquire customers just exceeded available cash. Right? You're at this early stage. We see this a lot with our businesses that come to us. You're not really bankable yet. You don't have the big cash flow engine running. You're growing. You're trying to really make it fit for yourself. And so the gateways are, well, let's get a small loan to cover the marketing budget. Okay, problem solved, right? Well, not exactly, right? Reaching for outside capital is not a magical solution. Money isn't magic, right? There was no proven marketing machine. So if you're going to get a loan, and this particular business would have qualified for it, it introduces kind of unnecessary risk. Now, that doesn't mean that's the wrong thing to do, but it's probably not the first thing to turn to, right? Don't just turn to easy outside capital. So we said, by doing the canvas, we asked, well, what if you sell many units to one customer? Okay, well, now the value of your customer goes up, the cash flow, the positive cash flow goes up, and you have more of this additional capital to spend on marketing to acquire customers. Well, this is silly, right? Like, who's going to buy a whole lot of these fleece jerseys, right? These fleece hoodies. And well, we looked. We didn't imagine possibilities. We weren't trying to be the smart people in the room. We just looked at what they had learned, who their customers were. And they found that they were selling employee gifts. They had businesses that were buying multiple units per sale, and they were proven, right? So we weren't taking a guess and a gamble on a new marketing strategy, new tactic where the ROAS or the return on ad spend was not yet clear. So this gateway might help us overcome this gap of the need for capital that we don't have to spend on marketing to get the number of units sold so we can meet our earnings target, right? Again, not particularly profound here, but this soundboarding through this exercise of this funding canvas helped us arrive at a possible pathway that's maybe better for the business today than reaching for outside capital that carries risk. Okay. So at the end of the day, Sky Goat's off to the races, and now they've now positioned. They can go out and ask this question: can we sell this? Do more people want this? And the answer is yes. So they're making a marketing position to do that. So if we look at this canvas, I'll pause for questions here, but we look at the canvas. We had a 15-minute chat. We asked, what's good for my business? We went through the goal. We went through the gaps in both the business and financial side, and we looked at, well, what are the gateways? What things help us get to where we want to be that maybe aren't as obvious? Because when you're in your business, you're in the business, and you're not always seeing all the possibilities there that maybe outside perspective can bring. So I saw some questions coming up in the chat. I'm gonna go and view those for myself here. I see, yay, Sky Goat, love me, my Sky Goat. Oh, look, lots of fans of Sky Goat in the room here today. So, but with that, I'll address any questions in the chat, and I will move on to how the canvas works, like what it actually looks to go through this exercise. Okay, so step by step, much like the business model canvas, we're gonna start with the first thing in the middle. What's our goal? And what does it take to meet this goal? And it really helps to address the goal in how it increases revenue or decreases cost. If your goal is to be the best dog groomer in the Grand Valley, where I live here, well, what does it take to make that goal? So your goal needs to be a little more specific, right? Be the best dog groomer in the valley. Okay, what is it going to take? And how does getting to that goal increase revenue or decrease cost? So you're going to be a little bit more specific about what you need. This is going to get you at an assumed use of capital, right? So in Sky Goat's case, well, I might need outside capital to cover this marketing budget that I don't have. Okay, it's assumed. But then we move over to the left side of the canvas, business readiness. Well, how is your business best positioned to meet this goal? Then we talk about the strength of your product, the strength of your marketing, or your market and marketing, the capacity of your business to meet this goal. Very simple questions, but helps you just think through it. Remember, it's a clarifying exercise. Then we're going to go to the right side, financial readiness, right? So these two sides of the canvas are coming together. Can they meet the goal? Financial readiness is going to address things like, how is your cash flow? Do you understand your margins? Are you carrying debt? Very, very basic questions around your financial position that just helps us understand what you might be able to work with, what your options might be or opportunities might be. Then we'll move back over to the business gaps. Okay, what are the obstacles to being ready to address this goal? What isn't yet available to you? Well, in Sky Goat's case, that was a marketing budget they just didn't have. And why didn't they have that? Well, it's early in the business and the cash flow reflected that, right? So some of the financial gaps on the other side are relevant to those obstacles. Okay, so we can bring up those. Now we get into the really interesting meat of it, right? We've got all this stuff to work with. You get the business opportunities, or these are the gateways. I should probably edit this canvas into our latest version where we try to go with gateways instead of opportunities. But nonetheless, how might you close these gaps or ignore them altogether? Maybe we're focused on the wrong thing. Similarly, we do that for financial opportunities. Now, altogether, it's starting to come around and meet the goal, but we might have to redefine our goal. Is the goal still accurate now? So we're going to have to ask that question at the end. Does it still stand? Are we actually asking the right questions? So much like the business model canvas that I showed here before, where you're trying to build the business plan in a simple one page, help reduce the clutter and the overthinking. We're going to do that here for your funding. What is our goal? How are we ready to meet that goal? What gaps do we have? And what gateways might present themselves to overcome that? In SkyGoat's case, he maybe doesn't need outside capital at all, right? So he was able to reach for a opportunity, a gateway within his reach that may help him get to the milestone he needs by addressing the or overcoming the gaps that he has. And that reduces risk for him. Now, that's a 15-minute chat. Doesn't mean it's the answer, but it gives them a place to start exploring these alternative pathways. And in one page, we can invite some outside perspective on this. We can share this with our business community, with our business advisors. You go to your local SBDC office, your economic development office. I see Thayer in the room. I know he's worked with this company. He runs Summit Economic Partnership. You go to the Startup Colorado community, right? They've got a wonderful digital space around their community for all of Western Colorado or all of rural Colorado. You can share this and get outside perspective. So I'm offering you outside perspective. Get your one-on-one guide. I'm happy to sit down and work with this through you. I do this weekly with businesses. You go to myfundingcanvas.com. It's in the chat. I'll go and put it back in there. And this is free to you, so long as we can share the learning, right? So much like SkyGoat, worked with me on this, and I'm gonna have a follow-up of how is he doing? We'll be able to report that too. That's shared learning. We can take that and share it with you today because we don't need to keep it particularly private because we offered this for free. So I'm gonna end right there. I'll answer any questions. I don't see anything come up in the chat yet, but simple exercise. It's yours to use, yours to implement in your organizations for supporting other business owners, helping, happy to do trainings on those. But most importantly, it's getting out of your own way, simplifying these questions and inviting that outside perspective because much like these lean coffees, sometimes crowdsourcing the information, the answers or the insights or the advice is right in the room.
Thank you, Spencer. That was a quick but tight presentation of a really great new tool to use. Thank you. I want to now invite the whole room because we have almost 60 people here, which is awesome. This is proving why Startup Colorado is here. Our goal is to create density of rural entrepreneurs so we can solve problems together. And as you know, we're all so spread out, even within our own communities. So I'm going to invite everyone in the room we're going to do a very short breathing exercise together. And then we'll turn off our cameras for that, and then we'll turn them back on. And I've got a few questions to ask the whole room, kind of a raise your hand type situation, like we're actually in a room. And then we're going to do some breakout rooms to get into talking about funding. Before I do that, though, does anyone have any specific questions for Spencer? I know they're going to come up as we get into things, but if anyone has a burning question, I want to allow that opportunity.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, please.
So for like your initial funding before you're profitable or making an income with your business, how much is too much to try to aim for?
Great question. And this is often where we start, right? People come to us, I say us, as a funder, asking these questions. How much can I get? What is too much? And I will help orient around is, well, what is the goal that you're trying to accomplish here? And then and in that goal, how can we reduce risk in it? And so Brian Wax here in the chat has mentioned walk the capital road with extreme caution, right? You take on risk, and I don't know many lenders who don't require a personal guarantee, right? That's going to follow you if business doesn't go well, right? You're going to take on that risk. So when you ask about how much is too much, it's going to be very conditional to your particular business. But I'm going to orient you around what are you trying to accomplish, and how do you have the best confidence in getting to that goal? What will give you that confidence so you can take the right appropriate amount of risk? Someone asks here, is the Canvas good for any business questions or geared towards funding only? Well, oftentimes the funding question is disguising the business question, the better question to ask at hand, right? So we're talking about if only I had the money, if only I had the funding. Well, let's unpack the funding questions to get at the business questions, and then the funding canvas might not be that useful depending on the type of business question that is really underneath. But that's okay because we can start with, well, what do you really mean by this funding question that you're starting with?
And then,
There's
sorry, go ahead.
No, there's some follow-up questions. We talk about liens on property, et cetera. Tasha, maybe you can clarify that for us.
Yeah, so they're going to want to see like guarantee personally the loan. Does that mean like putting a lien on the property, or how would that be guaranteed just by personal credit or what?
It's going to depend on the lender. These are very good questions to ask in terms of, well, what is going to be in the contract that's going to fall to you and what's going to be covered by either the collateral liens or your personal guarantee. It's just going to depend on the lender. But I don't know many in the case of debt financing where it doesn't fall to you or it doesn't cover some particular asset.
So then there's debt financing, and then there's like venture capital. Like if I want to set apart, set aside a part of my business for somebody to invest in, and that way fund my business, is that something different than what we're talking about here? I'm a little confused.
Well, specifically for the funding canvas, it's agnostic to any type of funding. So when it comes down to your financial opportunities, like what might be best for your business, what's good for you, that gets illuminated in, well, what position is your business in? What is the goal at hand? And venture is a proper type of capital for the right type of business and aspiration and growth potential and so forth. But there's a lot of space between. And even debt has a lot of different shapes, if you will. And so what's available to you is a reflection of really what your need and your risk are at the time. So the canvas is agnostic. I happen to work in debt today, so I can answer questions around debt, but the canvas is really about what's good for your business. And it's not necessarily going to give you the answer to that, right? So let me give you another example in Summit County recently. It was a pizza joint. I don't want to reveal too much here, but they're in this growth opportunity. They have a really great opportunity to move into a new space to expand their business. This is promising. Okay, well, what they have when you do the whole canvas, one of the things that emerged as an opportunity is they have this really strong customer base, this like fandom, right? They buy every week, they come every week, and they bring their family, right? That's an opportunity to really potentially here bring those customers, those fans into the future of your business in a financial capacity, in a funding role. There are ways to customer fund the next stage of that business. There are multiple different ways of doing that, but it creates this opportunity that maybe wasn't so obvious because reaching for a loan or something else might just feel easier. But what's good for your business? Well, now those fans are bought in. What's that going to do to the strength of your business and the championing of that business and the marketing for that business, the community building around it. So there's things that emerge that are in the big breadth of funding opportunities for your business. They're just going to depend on where you are today. Canvas is agnostic to that.
Hey, Spencer, it's Tim Martinez. How are you doing?
Hey, Tim, thanks for joining.
Sure. And I'm looking forward to partnering on an upcoming growth challenge with you and Energize Colorado. So a lot of the conversations that we're having here can be expanded upon in that setting. But a couple of the examples you just gave and what I've been finding a lot in the Founder Co-op Growth Challenge programming is that customer discovery is super important. And we talk about it and we go over it. But I think that once we end up at the end of the program, we end up coming back and saying the customer that you're focusing on is not necessarily who is going to be buying your product later on. And so with the pizza joint you just mentioned, maybe they have a really popular base of ski bros that come in every day, and they think that they can expand and maybe create another similar pizza joint in another town that's not ski bro centric. All of a sudden their customer base is very different. So
Yeah.
that is a really important step that I think gets glossed over often. So that's just something to think about, for folks to think about when they're moving forward.
Thank you, Tim. Yes. Yeah, I've addressed some additional things that have come up in the chat. Brian Wax really says this well. It's a clear use of capital to grow sales and generate profits. It is probably worth the effort here. Okay. Yes. And that's what we're asking, right? What is the goal? How does it affect revenue increase or cost decrease? And we are assuming a use of capital out of that. Now, as you work through the readiness and the gaps and the
I have
gateways,
some material for you if you want. Um, it's just the stuff I read through last night for his agreement, and then all the stuff that I thought maybe we can implement. But I have something typed up on it too.
I think just
As the host,
Just
you
like the
can mute
terms for the.
people,
Oh,
Spencer.
sorry, I wasn't. I've been doing that a couple times on the call, so
that
thanks.
was a
But
question coming up.
I
But
know
to
we're all
Brian's point,
multitask.
in the Canvas, we assume a use of capital up front because it's often what people come into the funding conversation about. We want to challenge that assumption by working through it. There's some other questions here coming up. Is it better to look for a property to own or leasing for future developments? Nicole Weber. We can go very specifically into that question for your business. Again, what's good for your business is what I'm always going to ask. Best way to contact me. I'm going to go ahead and put this back in the chat for everyone is the link to the Canvas. It's the myfundingcanvas.com. And from there, you can go ahead and request a meeting with me. I'm happy to help where I can to work through your business. Like I said, we can go pretty far in 15 minutes. What do
I
you do
can
if this
back
is
that
not
up.
generating revenue yet and need a line of credit? There are opportunities or funding providers in the state of Colorado that can meet you in that stage of your business. In Mesa County, we have a rolling fund that helps serve businesses in that position, and they're well positioned to do so. But again, it's going to be what's good for your business. Is outside capital actually addressing the best step to the next milestone, right? In a way that reduces risk. Your business, it will be different from everybody else, but you're asking that same question, and a little bit of outside perspective can help you clarify what your options are. Jennifer Thurston, hope that helped a little bit.
Excellent.
I think with that, I'll turn it back to Vanessa to continue with the lean coffee.
Thank you so much, Spencer. And thank you everyone for asking really good questions already. This is awesome to see. And yes, we've gone into the uncomfortable space of talking about funding, which is good. We have a new tool to use to frame how we're thinking about funding, which I think is always kind of the holdup. And I really appreciated those stories from you, Spencer. Thank you. I am now going to stop.